Welcome to our live stream here on FanDuel as we get set for the final Kentucky Derby prep race of the season. Yes, it's the Stone Street Lexington, which will take place on Saturday at Keeneland Racecourse. And as you know, we'll have a full team there as we do each and every day out at Keeneland in Lexington, Kentucky. And this race certainly does have some intrigue when it comes to horses that we could see pick up enough points when it comes to the Kentucky Derby 150 at Churchill Downs in just 3 weeks' time. And myself and Caleb Keller, and we'll get to Andie Biancone in just a moment, we'll be discussing this. And Caleb, welcome to the live stream as we get ready for a pretty wide open race. I mean, there are cases to be made for a number of these horses in the Stone Street Lexington on Saturday.
And Scott, even though at this point in the Derby Trail, we pretty much have the field finalized, except there's not just one, not two, but multiple horses in this Lexington Stakes on Saturday that could still find their way to the coveted gate in Louisville.
Yeah, that would be Hades and Encino, as well as Liberal Arts. Those are the three looking for those much-needed points at this point in the time, so late in this road to the Kentucky Derby Trail. If you're joining us on social media, of course you are, we want you to get involved in the show. We want questions. You all were very, very active last weekend when we were talking about the Toyota Bluegrass Stakes, and we want more of the same. We love the questions. We love the conversations with you all. You can hit us up on TVG's Facebook and TVG on YouTube as well if you're joining us there. If you're joining us elsewhere, head over to those various channels that we just mentioned, Facebook and YouTube, and fire those questions at us. And also with Caleb and myself here tonight talking Stone Street Lexington on Saturday, Andie Biancone. She is not back at the barn. It's too late in the evening. Horses are sleeping. They've been fed. They need their rest. We're looking forward to our rest as well, Andie Biancone, as we get set. Just keep those pillows off to the left. The rest comes a little bit later.
Welcome to my new condo, which I just purchased, but I still have nothing in here. So it's just, you're on the couch, little room tour. Anyways, okay, that's done.
It's part of adulting, right?
Yeah.
You get the place, and then the items trickle in. We'll see if we can find some hand-me-downs, because that was crucial in my younger days to furnishing the places that we've moved in throughout the years. But anyways, Stone Street Lexington. Enough about pillows and all the rest of it. The Stone Street Lexington Road to the Kentucky Derby. This is the final stop on the road to the Derby, because it stops there, and then you are in the Derby. Whether you're in or you're out, that is what some of these horses are trying to do when it comes to getting into the Kentucky Derby. And the morning line, Andie, the Wine Steward, he's 5-2 on the morning line as the favorite. He was a really nice 2-year-old, but he didn't run in the Breeders' Cup. We haven't seen him in a while. He's gotten a late start to his year. What do you make of this late start? Is this horse ready for this race? And obviously looking forward towards the rest of the springtime and summer.
I'm very excited to see the Wine Steward. Obviously, he ran huge in the Breeders' Futurity. He was actually a huge price that day because he got no respect as he's a New York bred, even though he was undefeated in those state bred races. But I saw him in the paddock, and I said, Mike, this horse looks really good. And he said, Andie, you'll be surprised. And he ran a huge second behind Locked. It was a super impressive second place finish. And obviously, we were so looking forward to seeing him in the Breeders' Cup, but he was sidelined. And obviously, it is kind of a big ask to step up here on his first start of 2024. But Michael Maker, very strong off these long layoffs. He knows how to get one ready off the bench.
Yeah, that's the question for the Wine Steward. That was going to be the look back at the Grade 1 Claiborne Breeders' Futurity, and we'll see if we can't roll that for you. I mean, the thing about it, as Andie mentioned, Caleb, he's gritty. I mean, the way that he fought on the inside in the Grade 1 Claiborne Breeders' Futurity was huge versus Locked. He won his first 3 starts of his career. He's got talent. Obviously, we're months removed from that, and the curve, it moves. And with these 3-year-olds and horses that we hadn't seen yet, and I mean, largely outside of the Wine Steward, we were not familiar with any of these horses. We'd not seen them, or they weren't really on this type of radar at that time, the last time we saw the Wine Steward. And that's what makes it such a challenging calculation when progressing from 2 to 3 and onward and upward.
He sent the message to Locked mid-stretch. I mean, he put in a battle to a quality horse in lock. Now, he did kind of get a perfect trip that day. He broke from the rail, he pocketed it up, and even though Locke beat him by a small margin, he ends up getting like a 6 on the thoroughgraphs. I think Locke got like a 2 or a 3, and that's a lot, a 3 or 4 point spread on thoroughgraph because Locke gave up a ton of ground. Locke was widest of all, and the wine steward saved every penny. But look how gritty he is. I mean, you put away Todd did not think Locke could lose the race, and at least for a moment there was some doubt with the wine steward. Now, he reminds me a little bit of a horse named Swipe. Now, Swipe ran a big race in second at Keeneland. He was second to Nyquist in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile for Keith DeSormo. But then he basically missed the whole Derby trail. And then, like, last second, they tried to get Swipe to the Lexington, and he just didn't fire his best that day. So hopefully the wine steward has better success with, like, the same path that Swipe did, a few years back. But it's a quality horse. And Mike Maker's wanting to show that he can have a scary horse on the dirt. He had, like, General A-Rod came up and made it to the Derby. But for the most part, Michael Maker has not been in this position, similar to Danny Gargan, we talked about in the Bluegrass, to bring a horse up from scratch and be a serious 3-year-old contender.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun race to see him back. And if anybody's got him ready to go, I'd say that Maker will be the guy. I mean, he's been picking up his workouts at Churchill Downs since coming up from Gulfstream, and he worked in 59 just back on the 30th of March. So we'll see. I mean, I think it's one of those situations where you would like to have seen a race from him, but this is part of the puzzle that we're trying to piece together for the Stone Street Lexington on Saturday and trying to pick winners here. I think he is a deserving favorite on the morning line, given what we saw from him at the age of 2. We're going to get to Hades next, the runner that sprung the upset on Fierceness in the Grade 3 Holy Bull in a race that was one of the most paceless Derby prep races that I can remember, and he took advantage of that. Riva's checking in. She wants to know, what do we think of the chances with blinkers? That's the change being made here, and Jose Ortiz jumping into the irons. I don't think that they can hurt. I mean, Caleb Jose Ortiz, he's having a hell of a meet here at Keeneland in this first week that we've had racing. And Joe Orseno said he's been wanting to put blinkers on this horse for a while, but he didn't want to do it because it was working without them. And I think that it's just evident of in this route situation, he's got to show a little bit more. He's got to show a little bit more sharpness at this level because he was exposed in the Grade 1 Florida Derby when Fierceness took the initiative.
Yeah, he broke from the inside that day, and he wouldn't have had a chance anyways because Fierceness, nobody could match that. But he just didn't break well from the 2. And once Hades was off a little bit bobbled, like it was going to get ugly from there. Now, the quality of what he beat in the Holy Bull, beating Domestic Product, wins the Tampa Bay Derby. We know Fierceness, but it is kind of wild. Like, Andy, I think about that 25 and 50 pace. Like 25 and 50, that would be slow in a claiming race. And there was 2 South Florida Derby preps. The Sam F. Davis, with no more time, had 25 and 50. I thought that Florida was supposed to have these fast fractions early in the year. How have they had 2 slow paces like that, Andy?
I have no idea, but honestly, Gulfstream Park is a little bit of an unfair surface to an extent with these short finish line races going a mile and a 16th around the main track. These horses, it's kind of whoever gets to the front is whoever has the best chance. So Hades, when he won the Holy Bull, he kind of just took an easy lead. Paco just sat chilly and the horse was never contested. Whereas in the Florida Derby, things didn't go his way. He didn't break the best. He got slammed at the break, went wide. And, like you said, Caleb, it was no competition between him and Fierceness that day. But he really never got a fair shot in the Florida Derby. With that being said, I thought he looked better when he won the Holy Bull than when he ran in the Florida Derby. Like, I remember, I just thought he was carrying his weight a little bit better in the Holy Bull. He looked, to me personally, a little bit light on Florida Derby day. But I do think with him getting onto the Keeneland surface, the one thing about Keeneland is it's very fair. There's a little bit more margin for error. If something happens in the first turn, there's still enough stretch to work with where he could potentially recover. And Joe Orseno has said that this horse is nice. He has speed, but he doesn't have to have the lead. He takes kickback. He's kind. He's not fussy in any way. And maybe those blinkers are just going to add a little more sharpness to him.
And I think he needs it. I mean, that the thing about a horse like Hades, and you referred to having more stretch, Andy. Don't forget that this is a short stretch finish. I mean, this is a mile and a 16th first wire finish. So, I mean, this is the same deal essentially that he was running in the Holy Bull. So, but it's not going to be that slow. There's just no possible way that it's going to be that slow. You've got John Ennis with a runner. How's your attitude? Who we'll get to in a moment. Encino, what will he do? I mean, if they go in those kinds of fractions, you just carry me out of there, and that's it. I'm not going to come back on Sunday. There's no possible way that
No
that
way.
happens with Encino. And speaking of points, Caleb, he's what, number 24 right now on the Derby top 20. He's got 30 points, so he needs to finish 1-2 if he wants to get into this top 20.
So the point breakdown is 20 to the winner, 10, 6, 4. Okay, so Hades has 30. The key number in the Derby has been 40. Because if I heard correctly, as of to this point, there's never been a horse with 40 points not getting to the Derby. So if Hades wins, he's got 50. If he finishes second, he's got 40. If Encino with 20 wins, he's at 40. And Liberal Arts has a weird odd number, 19. 20 could get him right to that cut line for 39. So basically, the top three contenders, if they win, they should very well be in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and being in the top 20 is where you want to be. And I'm not suggesting or hoping that this is going to happen, but there's always in those final 3 weeks and couple of weeks, you never know what could happen. It's just, these are living, breathing beings and athletes that things could come up and then you can sneak in. So you do want to get those points, even if it doesn't mean being in the top 20 necessarily right now or right beyond Saturday, come winner circle picture time and them crossing the wire in the Grade 3 Stone Street, Lexington. Let's talk about Encino in here. Now, this is a colt for Godolphin who was scratched out of the Toyota Bluegrass because he had a wide draw. He wins the John Battaglia. He beats Epic Ride. Epic Ride has got to flatter this form, right? The way that he ran against Sierra Leone and Just a Touch, that was a big third place finish for Epic Ride, and Encino got the best of him. And if he wins this, he's in the top 20. That would give him 40 points in total.
And I think, Andy, too, when I look at Florent Giroux, who's going to ride Encino for the first time, Florent Giroux is at his best. I think that Giroux is one of the best in an outside stalking second or third. Like when Giroux's stalking, you're in trouble. Now, Encino has only been on the lead or pretty far off. So I think on Saturday, Giroux kind of wants to get him into that outside. He wants to show a little bit more speed. They don't want to be coming from too far back. So if Giroux can get Encino to second or third early, they might be in a nice spot.
100% agree. I think this horse kind of shows some versatility with that. He can come from way off of it, or he can be forwardly placed, and he doesn't mind. One thing that I do like about Encino is he's been training at Keeneland. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but it just seems like horses that have been training at Keeneland so far this meet have been doing better in comparison to horses that have shipped in from Churchill, let's say, for example.
He's had 3 workouts on the track, obviously, not running in the Toyota Bluegrass, and here he is this afternoon, or I should say on Saturday. This race obviously taking place on Saturdays. We come to you in the evening hours of Thursday. He's a contender. Is there a case, Caleb, where this horse goes off as the favorite? I see it happening, and I think that he goes favorite over the Wine Steward.
I could see that. Godolphin, to no surprise, they're starting their charge to winning yet another owner's title at Keeneland, as they were the big heavy favorite to do so anyways. Also, the Dam Glittering Jewel, we mentioned this last time when he was actually entered for the Bluegrass. The Dam is a half to Street Sense, our 2007 Kentucky Derby winner. So I got to give credit to John Ennis with Epic Ride, who boldly gave up the big money to Jeff Ruby and the Derby points to come run that big third in the Bluegrass. And same thing with Brad Cox. They could have just stayed at the Jeff Ruby 89 buyer. That's exactly the same buyer that Endlessly had coming in on the synthetic. Endlessly won that race. So John Ennis with Epic Ride and Cox with Encino, they both gave up a chance to basically be a favorite for that expensive Jeff Ruby to come to Keeneland.
And I think it's with purpose, in my opinion. You see now and give him some time, and that certainly worked out for Epic Ride. We've got a lot of questions coming in and a lot of comments, so we appreciate it. Keep them coming on YouTube and Facebook, and even looks like Jonathan Green checking in from DJ Stables. As far as DJ Stables and Hades, I see Jonathan. He's asking. He's got a rooting interest in here, and he wants to know: have you heard any rumors of any horses in the top 20 not running, asking for a friend? I pulled up an article that Nicole Russo of the Daily Racing Form put out just this afternoon, and just quoting her story right at the top of the story, that the point scale 20, 10, 6, 4, and 2 on down the line. She refers to, if deterministic, this is a quote from the DRF story, if deterministic, 8th in last week's Grade 2 Wood Memorial, does not run as expected, then the horse currently in the 19th and final Derby spot on points. One spot has been awarded to a Password. She goes in on that. The fact that she brings up Deterministic off of his disappointing run in the Wood as the favorite, I thought was a bit interesting. So I don't know. I've not heard any rumors at this point in time as we're 3 weeks out from the Kentucky Derby. Have either of the two of you heard anything or paid that close attention to what exactly is going on with the top 20 spots?
No news, no backside buzz so far. Every horse, at least from what I've heard, is sound, happy, doing well, training well. I have been on a week hiatus from the backside because I've been setting up my condo, but I'm going to get back to it this weekend. So, Jonathan Green, if I hear anything, I'll let you know.
And there was only one that I was considering that might willingly opt out, and that was actually Domestic Product, because we know that Chad Brown and Klarovich, they've done really well skipping the Derby and going to run huge in the Preakness, which Seth Klarman grew up right there in Baltimore across from Pimlico. So that being said, they just booked Irad Ortiz Jr. this week for the Kentucky Derby. Irad's a champion jockey. He's out there floating around needing a mount for the Derby. So the fact that they confirmed with Irad to ride Domestic Product, that says he's a go. So of the top 20 that are in, they are all gladly heading to Louisville as of now.
Well, I think one horse worth bringing up in this conversation to just stay with top 20, and we'll move along in the Stone Street Lexington, and that's why we're here tonight, is Endlessly with Michael McCarthy. They said, I mean, the day after Michael McCarthy says, we're not going to run in the Derby, we're going to run in the American Turf for 3-year-olds. And then it was roughly a week later, somewhere in that window, where he said, no, we're going to consider the Kentucky Derby. So I think he's really kind of the wild card, and that's just seeing exactly what they decide to do. And we've seen the sons and daughters of Oscar Performance, who was a brilliant Grade 1 winner on turf. We've seen them fly on the main track. So maybe that's creeping into it. Oscar Performance, they've done such a great job marketing him, the team behind him during his stallion career. And he's a horse that has risen very quickly in a short amount of time. And I find it crazy when you look at the way that racing has trended towards turf, or more towards turf than it ever has been in North American racing. His resume speaks for itself, but I think there's still this reluctance of breeders and looking at these types of horses, because why would you not want horses with turf pedigree? But nonetheless, it could be a way for them to market him even further clearly, but obviously do what's best for Endlessly at the end of the day. I don't know. I mean, I trust Michael McCarthy. I think that they leave it in his hands. I think the team with Ammerman Racing will do so, but he's kind of the horse to me that we have to see what they decide to do with him. He's sitting right now number 7 on the list after his 100-point win in the Jeff Ruby Stakes.
And I thought right when they passed the wire, they said, no, we're not going to the Derby. We're going to go to the American Turf. And I'm like, look, that's Michael McCarthy, because he doesn't get caught up in hype and flash. But we're watching the Masters here first round. I've heard this from golfers before. Sometimes you come off the golf course and you had a conservative game plan, but you're hitting the ball so well, you didn't get enough out of your round. You're thinking, maybe I was too conservative. And in terms of Endlessly, with that move in the turn, out of the Jeff Ruby Stakes, which we know has been ultra live last couple of years, first and second in the Derby, last 2 years, Rombauer, we know, took that same route to win the Preakness. This horse is ahead of Rombauer. When Rombauer won the El Camino Real Derby, Endlessly got a better buyer when he won it. Rombauer came into the Preakness off an 88, Endlessly got a low 90. So, I mean, like, Andy, this horse, like, I appreciate the fact that McCarthy wasn't small in the roses right away, but when you have time to think about it, this is an interesting kind of pseudo-live contender.
Yeah, and he's just been an ultra consistent horse. He's very, very game. And I personally was super impressed with his win in the Jeff Ruby. I thought it was one of the more impressive Derby preps that we've seen. And no question, if you have a good 3-year-old at this time of year, you got to take a shot at the Derby. So I think the golf analogy, I'm not a golfer myself, but that was a really good way of explaining it, Caleb. I really liked that. Connections were maybe conservative at first when the horse crossed the wire, but now they're kind of starting to look around and see the options. And I feel like a lot of horses who do well at Churchill Downs, especially in the Kentucky Derby, kind of have a turfy pedigree in a way. So the fact that this horse has done so well on turf and et cetera, why not take a shot?
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering correctly, and Caleb, you read and study this game as closely as any of us do, that Michael McCarthy said he's just kind of an average workhorse on dirt, and that that's one of those things that maybe he was playing into the mind. If I'm remembering correctly from one of those stories. But another horse to throw out there, Animal Kingdom, right? Animal Kingdom off the synthetic and his turf runs. We'll see. That's the conversation that we'll be having plenty of over the next 3 weeks here in these streams, and especially when we get down to Derby week, we're going to have a lot of coverage. If you enjoy our streams, our FanDuel streams, and keep those questions coming, folks are firing again tonight. I guess they're watching the Masters and joining us as well, as we are multitaskers in life these days. As we come back to the Grade 3 Stone Street Lexington field, we're going to move along in the conversation to Liberal Arts. Now, here's a horse that did he catch lightning in a bottle in the Grade 3 Street Sense in October at Churchill, and he ran a solid third in the Southwest Stakes, and then last time out he just was all discombobulated, if you will, in that race. But I'll start with you, Andie. What do you make of Liberal Arts? I mean, is he a legitimate contender now at this stage, even though we saw him do well near the end of his 2-year-old campaign?
I kind of, after seeing the Arkansas Derby effort, he's kind of lost a lot of points for me. The street sense, he caught a small field, 5 horses. The Southwest, that was really a nice effort. The 3 wide just got that perfect pocket trip, but it seems like he's a horse who really needs things to go his way. He had that nice, clear outside kind of pocket sitting trip in the Southwest, whereas in the Arkansas Derby, he was super rank and got out. And those big days have as you guys know, there's a far different energy than on like a smaller day per se. And I'm sure Arkansas Derby Day was packed and popping at Oaklawn Park. And who knows, anything could have set this horse off. I just did not like how unmanageable he was. Like, you really don't want to be on a horse who's that temperamental, you know, that discombobulated so easily in such a big field of horses. So I just didn't really like what I saw, honestly.
We just had Matt Cooper check in on Facebook. He thinks Liberal Arts is a Belmont type of horse. I think one of the things, Mac, that I would say is that I think you got to be careful with horses that you think are these deep closers that can win the Belmont. You've got to have stamina and you've got to have position as well. I'm not saying that this horse is a deep closer. The way I read him, and he's been a hell of a horse for these connections. He's a homebred for the Ferraros. I just think that he has not been able to keep up as things have gotten tougher. That's my read on Liberal Arts, because he won the street sense. You want to win the street sense when you're there. But as he's stepped up, he's just not been able to keep going forward as you need to in these situations, Caleb.
Well, as a juvenile, he just had natural stamina, and not many juveniles have like any stamina. So the fact that he just had more wind in the pipes as a 2-year-old, now those speedy horses that he was faster than, now they start to stretch out their stamina as we get into the 3-year-old campaign. So it is hard for the early horses that have natural long distance stamina to continue to go up the curve. But I wouldn't give up on this horse just yet. He had a horrible trip in the Iroquois. And I talked to the connections after that race in the Arkansas Derby. And, it was a weird thing that when the one horse came up on the inside, he kind of bolted out. But I mean, he basically got taken out of the race and still got a low 80 buyer, which was even better than when he had the bad trip in the Iroquois. It almost matched his effort there in the street sense. And the arrow gates, my gosh, I mean, like, there's only so many more chances in our lives we have to play these arrow gates. It was earlier this week, they had the 2-year-old filly maiden special weight. Juddmonte had the monster by Arrowgate, and then the second place finish of the long shot was also by Arrowgate. So he's already given us an Oaks winner. He's already given us a champion in Archangelo. So these Arrowgates, like, not many chances we're going to have for a great horse that has gone too early.
It's very, very fair point when it comes to the breeding, and we look so much at breeding. I mean, I think that we have reached a point and maybe this point came long before the light bulb went on to me, where breeding is as much important as important in the Kentucky Derby in modern history. And I think especially now that we have this Derby point system where you've taken some of those very fast horses out that are taking, those big prize pools and earning graded stakes things. I think that the pedigree, and obviously the pedigree, is there for Liberal Arts. I'm going to start with you, Caleb, because we were asked, do we have all the elements that we need for tonight's stream for the Stone Street Lexington? And you came with the horse How's Your Attitude, the number 6 horse. He's 30-1 on the morning line. The pedigree's there. He's by Street Sense, Derby winner. He just broke his maiden at the end of February, and it took him 3 starts to do so. That was his first time going 2 turns. What is it about How's Your Attitude, besides your man John Ennis, who I saw you talking to in the paddock today, at Keeneland. We love John Ennis. What is it about this colt that you had to include him in tonight's show?
Well, we all three try to relay the messages from the people we have great fortune talking to in the paddock. And I asked John Ennis before the meet, I'm like, who are you looking for at this meet? He gave me this horse. And he said, one thing about this horse, how's your attitude? This is the first time he ever went long. He said the horse does not like the poly track. So this horse is winning in spite of a track that he does not like. The 72 buyer is not all that scary. We know that. That's why he's 30-1. But this horse has been working with Epic Ride, who ran that big third there at 50-something-1 in the bluegrass. So, this was the horse he gave me before the meet even started, before Epic Ride ran. Been working head and head with the third place horse in the bluegrass, and said the horse didn't like the track, even if they won going long for the first time.
Andie, what do you make of this? And this is the second time this week that I've heard this. Gabby brought this up on a horse. It was either today or yesterday that had won. I forget. It might have been at Tampa Bay Downs and won, but she was convinced didn't like the track. Can horses just do that, not like a track, and still be that much better?
Absolutely. If they have that talent and they have that tenacity, they can overcome anything. But that's huge to know that this horse doesn't like the synthetic and was still able to perform as well as he has been, even going short, going long. It just shows that he kind of has a level of grittiness, and it's going to be exciting to get him over the main track. But John Ennis, he is really excited about this horse. He came up to me as well, Caleb, like couple days, first day of the meet, I think, and he was like, "Oh, Andie, you're gonna fall in love with this horse. You're gonna fall in love with him." And I was like, "Really? I'm excited to see him, John." Like, yeah. So I can't wait. I think that's huge information that he doesn't like the synthetic, and he was still able to perform relatively well. He's definitely live at a big prize.
I
And I
always
feel that
like
John is not
Go
a
ahead.
tout too, Scott. I mean, John's
Yeah,
not the guy that's sings. Like
yeah.
he gives you a few horses. Over the years I've known him, very particular about the horse that he gives. So you kind of become a poker player a little bit when you have a chance to report in the paddock. You're kind of gauging if what they're saying, if you're really buying it. But I think that he is one of those straight shooters that doesn't give out way too many horses that he likes.
Yeah, and I love it when trainers come and point towards a horse that you're not even talking about. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen often, but one of my greatest moments in life and inside information was Tepin. I think you might have
Mm.
been there when Tepin. She was a 6-9-1 at Churchill. It was Derby weekend. We were there for TBG. I believe it was 2015, Pharaoh's Derby. And he said, "Watch out for this filly." I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "Well, it's her name's Tepin. She's running this weekend. She's doing phenomenal." And that was before anybody knew who Tepin was. And then fast forward, she rolls through the rest of that summer and that year and goes to Royal Ascot. And, the rest is history with Tepin. And Laganos was another horse like
Mm.
that. It was Steve Asmussen, Andie. He'd said it when we were there for, it might have been the Rebel Stakes. He didn't run well there. And then I was latched on to Laganos for the Transylvania, and he ran a really good third at a huge number. So, yeah, that's one of the great luxuries that we have. And especially when you build that relationship and that comfort with trainers and people and getting them to open up to you, it's a great advantage. It doesn't happen always, and like you said, you got to be careful sometimes, Caleb, with particular instances. And I'm not trying to call people out. The folks that love to talk about the horses, and those that are just coming because they really do like a horse. I know that we're running up on 30 minutes, but I want to keep it going, and I know we don't have any more video to roll, but we can't get through the Stone Street Lexington without talking about Lucky Jeremy, the number 10 horse. He's 8-1 on the morning line. I'd be shocked if he goes off at that price. But isn't this one like the Epic Ride situation that we were talking about with the horse? Now my memory is not serving me correctly, but the horse that ran well against Epic Ride, Encino. Now that's the case with Lucky Jeremy, right, Caleb? I mean, he was third with Stronghold. This horse has speed. He's going to have to go from the outside. Stronghold won the Sunland Derby and then won the Santa Anita Derby. I mean, this, to me, looks like a situation where the synthetic just didn't agree with him, and I think the cutback in distance will be a huge plus for him if Corrales gets him out there and takes him to the front, the number 10 horse.
I think anytime that a pace setter is on the outside, they're gonna kind of like shock the field early. When you got a horse on your outside that's cutting across you when you're just going to the first turn, which is not that far away, and it's speed to take seriously. And the third to Stronghold, I think it's a pretty quality race, only beaten 2 lengths. People can say, "Oh, Stronghold, whatever." Stronghold reminds me of potentially the year that Battle of Midway actually got to the trifecta in the Kentucky Derby. Remember that year that Gormley won the Santa Anita Derby? There wasn't any Bob Baffert. The winning buyer was in the high 80s, and nobody was afraid of it. And meanwhile, Battle of Midway got in there and ran third at almost 40-1. So I think that Stronghold is better than people think. I give him an outside chance to hit the Derby Super. And if Lucky Jeremy can be 2 lengths behind him with speed, and if Hades doesn't step on the pedal like everybody's expecting, but if Hades doesn't jam the gas, this 10 might get loose.
Yeah, super true. I think Lucky Jeremy is certainly a live contender, especially the slight cut back in distance that he gets from the 1.8 that he faced in the Jeff Ruby. I think the horse just got a little bit tired. Obviously, he's a speedball. My one concern for him is that he's been training at Turfway Park. I feel like it is a little bit more difficult to get a horse ready to run on the dirt, at a long distance when you've just exclusively been training on synthetic. That's kind of, if I'm looking to poke holes in him, but 8-1 morning line, if he's, like you guys said, he's probably going to get bet down, but 8-1 is a pretty good value on him.
Why is that? Let's go back to training on synthetic and then running on dirt. We see a lot of trainers, they like to train on synthetic to get ready for turf. Brendan Walsh does that a lot for these Keeneland meets. He trains his turf horses on synthetic. Is it because it's easier to get over, Andie? Is it as simple as that?
Yes, it's as simple as that. It's a lot less tiring, a lot less taxing. I feel like even on the training track at Keeneland, that poly track, horses could do like 3-4 laps with you. Like they don't want to stop. It's like Mario Kart. It's like, and then especially it's like a 5/8. Yeah, it is like a little bit like Mario Kart out there, But and on the main track, horses, I mean, they're still strong. They're still pulling you around there, but they get a little more tired than just the poly track. So
I've got 2 more thoughts on this. And if you all have any more, I want to hear it from you, Caleb and Andie, and we want to hear more of your questions. I think Secret Chat, the one's a live long shot for what it's worth. I don't know that he's good enough, but going back to pedigrees, again, how many sons and daughters of Union Rags have you seen win going 1 turn? They're distance horses. I think this is a horse that could break out, put together a strong effort. It's a big ask, obviously, at this point in time, but here they are, Roderick Rodriguez, who's a South Florida trained. Andie, if you have any insight there, this is a name I'm not very familiar with. Gelfenstein Farm, we see plenty of those runners down in Florida. I think that he's got a big look. And I'll hold my second thought because it's something for next week that our folks that are kind enough to join us tonight that they're going to use on Thursday because I've got some crossover there. But what do you make of am I crazy for thinking Secret Chat could take a step forward, or is this just too much against these types?
I think he could take a step forward. Like you said, being by Union Rags, there's no question he's going to like the 2-turn distance. And honestly, the horse has been putting in decent works at Palmettos. It's kind of hard to work. Palmettos is a deeper track, and working 48-1 from the gate, 48, those are decent times on that surface. So the horse seems like he's athletic, has a little bit of tactical speed, might find himself forwardly placed jumping from the 1 hole, but he's bred to handle the distance, and it seems like he wants distance with his running style, but it is a tough ask. He wouldn't be my top pick as a long shot, but I could see it happening as well.
We're not going yet. They're counting us down, and maybe we're being counted
Party's
down.
not over.
I guess so. Here's the last thing. We're running out of time, but Dilger, the 3. Speaking of pedigrees, I don't know how many Lope de Vegas I've seen run on the dirt to begin with, but clearly this is a better horse on dirt, son of Lope de Vega, the Irish runner. The horse that he beat, Reynolds Channel, watch for him on Thursday. I was just handicapping Thursday, so that's something for you to tuck away for Thursday. Reynolds Channel, who was third to Dilger. I think he is very, very live on the Thursday card. Is there anything that you would like to leave our streaming viewers here on FanDuel with, Caleb, as we get set for the final Derby Pret? This is it. This is the end before we get to the first Saturday in May in 3 weeks.
So one other horse I wanted to hit before we sign off. Okay, I thought the best allowance for 2-year-old boys in Kentucky last year happened here, and it was on November 9th, Churchill Downs, race 8. Okay, now Parchment Party won it for Bill Mott. Undefeated, missed the Derby Trail. Let's hope to see him in like the Travers. We know that First World War won that turf stakes down at Gulfstream. Laganos, you mentioned, a heck of a horse, was third. Who was fourth in that race? Catching Freedom, who had an awful trip that day. And then fifth was Footprint out of that ultra live allowance. And since then, Footprint has rose up the ranks. He's got a little stickiness to him late, where he's been making these big moves and then he kind of latches on to another horse and lets them guide him home. He's been idling a little bit for second and third, but he's really getting better. McPeak and Hernandez was on fire there at Oaklawn Park. And even if he finishes second or third at 10-1 on the line, Footprint was out of a loaded race last year and has improved into this season.
Footprint is a really good looking horse as well. I remember the weekend after the Gun Runner in that allowance. I remember me and Scott, you and I, we were at Oaklawn, and Footprint ran that day. He finished third by a head, but I just remember the Kenny McPeak connections being like, oh, Kenny loves this horse. He's so high on this horse. This horse is, we're hoping he can take a step up because Kenny thinks he has the potential to be a serious horse. So, I mean, that day he ran third. He was in post position 7, so that is a little bit towards the outside, which is obviously difficult going a mile at Oaklawn. But I agree, Caleb. I think he's a nice horse and could maybe take a step forward.
I think we've made a case for all of them except for Ever Do It, who looks to be a tough one to make a case for given his stakes company runs, and he's 30-1 on the morning line. We've hit on Footprint, touched on Dilger. This is a big ask, but you got the common race with Reynolds Channel, who we'll see next week if you want to tuck that away. Our man Mac, who's been with us throughout on Facebook, he wants to know who's going to win. I'm going Encino. That's my take. I think that he can track off the pace, finish strong. He's bred for the main track. It's Brad Cox. We've seen good horses recently come out of Turfway Park, especially as it just continues to get better and better and better, and he can't keep them all at Fairgrounds and Oaklawn. So this might be one that just kind of snuck under the radar and is getting good at the right time. So I go Encino, the 8. But if the Wine Steward comes back in top form, he'll be tough. I mean, this is a hell of a betting race. There could be any number of horses in here that could surprise us, in my opinion, that are going to be good prices. I go Encino. Caleb, where do you go?
I'm going to go with the number 9, Liberal Arts. I just think that if this horse gets his mind right, which when you get to the champion jockey, Irad Ortiz Jr., this is a great chance to get your mind right. Keeneland has just been showing that if you're the best finisher, you don't really get hung out to dry at Keeneland like you used to 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when it was more speed favoring. So I think that a focused Liberal Arts is still a major threat here in this race. I'm going to take him on top, and I'm going to put Footprint underneath for this superfecta. I think the 4 is going to grab a slice of this underneath, but Andy, I'll take the 9 Liberal Arts on top.
I'm with Scott. Caleb, I'm taking Encino.
That's it?
That's it.
Mic drop.
Wait,
the pick.
Go ahead.
But it's close to my bedtime. I'm sorry. Anyways, but can I just revisit this when I see them in the paddock? Because let's be for real. I got to get eyes on them.
And by the way, Andy, nice call yesterday. But you basically proclaimed to the FanDuel TV audience, go to your account and open it up, and whatever you have on this Riley Mott horse at 5-2. So that was a great call and one of the most defiant of the meet. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Caleb. Your star, always hyping me up.
We're all there. We'll be there throughout the meet. Only the Grade 3 Stone Street Lexington Stakes on the road to the Kentucky Derby presented by Spendthrift. Don't go anywhere, Andy. Don't turn that camera off. We haven't said goodbye. We also have the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley Stakes, as we can't wait. The weather's supposed to be great on Saturday as well. The rain is supposed to get out overnight. We'll see how it is on Friday. Saturday is supposed to be picture perfect. I was speaking to some folks out there at Keeneland. They expect it could be the biggest crowd of the entire meet with the weather that we're going to be having. Thank you all, first of all, for joining us on the stream and the great questions that you all had. We love the participation. We love the involvement. I don't know how you're doing
Nicely
that,
done.
but you are pulling it off, Andie Biancone. What is happening here? And then, Caleb, great stuff as always. Love talking Derby with you, man. This is your sweet spot. You are on top of it. You come with stuff that nobody else does. I appreciate you giving us time while the Masters is on TV. That shows some discipline. And I want to know, are you going to get a bigger box of chapstick sent your way or a bigger box of Fiji sent your way for them being in camera during this entire stream if they were paying attention?
Well, Fiji, that's like when I'm on the company dime, I can afford more $3 bottles of water. When I'm at home in California, I've got like the Brita going in the refrigerator. So company dime and FanDuel, thank you for the Fiji throughout the meet.
And you always got the chapstick at the ready. I know that. We worked one day at Keeneland. You were scrounging you were scrambling for some chapstick, and they came through with some chapstick, I believe, from the gift shop there.
That's true. Good call.
Andy, Caleb, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. We can't wait for the Stone Street Lexington. Big weekend ahead at Keeneland. It's the final stop onto the road to the Kentucky Derby, and then, of course, then it's on to the big one. Derby 150. FanDuel's the spot for everything Kentucky Derby in 2024 and each and every year. We look forward to seeing you on Saturday.